Remember those carefree days of childhood where the magic still existed? When you didn't feel guilty about eating mountains of cereal with, we'll just say, questionable nutrition? Well, now you can have your cereal and you can eat it too. Because Magic Spoon has re-engineered that same great taste with grown-up ingredients for an absolutely game-changing Cereal 2.0. I adore cereal. I treasure cereal. It's one of my favorite things to eat, but I just can't justify eating mounds of sugar in every bowl. I don't need to worry about that with Magic Spoon because it's high protein, low carb, and 0 grams of sugar in each serving. I know, it's hard to believe, but it also comes in 6 delicious flavors: frosted, fruity, cocoa, cinnamon, blueberry, and peanut butter. Plus, they've got limited edition flavors released throughout the year, like gingerbread or peaches and cream. So taste that magic of childhood all over again and get yourself some Magic Spoon cereal. Plus, take $5 off your order at checkout. All you got to do is insert the promo code Kingdom Team. That's right, Kingdom Team at checkout will get you $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com. That's magicspoon.com. Promo code Kingdom Team. Well, it's a great day to have you with us. Hello, friends. Disney News Talk Live is straight ahead. Some of the stories that we are tracking for you this week: the Walt Disney Company has filed a lawsuit against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Are they grasping at straws, or do they have a real shot at doing some damage here? Does he stand a chance? We will dive into all of that. Disneyland's Fantasmic went up in flames this past week in a horrific image that definitely went viral. We will discuss. Alongside that, it has impacted other shows and performances around the world, including Walt Disney World, making some changes due to that Fantasmic incident. We will share the details with you. And the Walt Disney Company continues to lay off people by the thousands, a story that is not getting a ton of play. We will certainly bring that to you today. And we do love rewarding you for watching this show. All you have to do to win your very own Kingdom Report mug is leave the phrase that pays. After the live broadcast is over, you can head on down to the comment section beneath this video and leave the comment, "Happily Ever After." Happily Ever After is the phrase that pays this week. Leave that comment beneath this video after the live broadcast between now and Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time. You'll be entered for a chance to win your very own Kingdom Report mug. If you're the winner, we'll reach out to you directly and get that mug shipped your direction. Once again, happily ever after is the phrase that pays this week. So many great stories to talk about, so much Disney news to discuss. We are glad you're here. Disney News Talk Live begins right after the countdown.
Para su seguridad, permanezca sentado y mantenga sus manos, brazos, pies y piernas dentro del vehículo. Y cuida a sus niños. Gracias.
Please step carefully onto the moving platform, then step into the car. For your safety, remain seated at all times, keeping hands, arms, feet, legs, and other appendages inside your car. And please supervise younger beings. Stay clear of the doors, which will open and close automatically. Enjoy your journey.
Para su seguridad, permanezca sentado y mantenga sus manos, brazos, pies y piernas dentro del vehículo. Y cuida a sus niños. Gracias.
Please step carefully onto the moving platform, then step into the car. For your safety, remain seated at all times, keeping hands, arms, feet, legs.
This is the TTA Blue Line, non-stop service around Tomorrowland.
Greetings, intergalactic travelers. Welcome aboard the People Mover, presented by Enterprise. I'm Monarch 5, your guide aboard this highway in sky, the absolute best way to see Tomorrowland. And my stars, is there ever lots to see? From spacecraft to monster labs, there's really nothing like it today in Tomorrowland.
For your safety, if you have wings, jetpacks, or gravity polarizers, please do not take flight while on board. Thank you.
The next station is Tomorrowland Urban Planning and Star Traders. Transfer to Green and Red Line.
Don't worry, your express train keeps on rolling through the future. Right by two of my favorite spots.
Disney News Talk Live, and you are a part of it this weekend. Hey friends, it's Wade Heath with the Kingdom Report, hanging out with you once again to do all them Disney news stories from coast to coast. Definitely here to chat about, yes, Disney versus Ron DeSantis. Once again, we are back at it with all of the discussion regarding the state of Florida and the Walt Disney Company. It is a never-ending battle, it seems, and Disney has now stepped it up after curiously saying that they were not going to be political. Bob Iger specifically had said that they were not going to get involved anymore. Things were really going to get quiet, as he sort of alluded to, and then here comes a lawsuit. We will not only dive into all of the details surrounding that lawsuit, but we will also talk about some analysis as to whether or not the lawsuit stands a chance and whether or not Governor Ron DeSantis is in any sort of trouble here when it comes to potential retaliatory levels of legislating and governing. There is a lot of discussion on the free speech front when it comes to what a company can and can't say, as well as what Governor DeSantis can do with a big old legislator behind him passing laws. So again, we will get into all of the analysis, all of the discussion coming up here in just a bit. Of course, as mentioned, yes, it's true. Those layoffs continue across the Walt Disney Company. And unfortunately, we are seeing a heck of a lot of people lose their jobs by the thousands. The details on that coming up. Them dragons. Yeah, the Fantasmic Dragon, the unfortunate Inferno that engulfed that dragon this past week. It will be a focus of the program, as well as the Maleficent Dragon out at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. What does one have to do with the other? We will tell you about it. WDW Explore and Chill saying, hi guys, hey, thanks for being with us. Trisha Murphy saying, hello everyone. Trisha, so glad that you could be here. Lori Jean saying, our Fantasmic Dragon B-mode for a while. Yeah, B-mode meaning, of course, a different version of Fantasmic, and Fantasmic has yet to return. We'll definitely discuss that. Terry saying, hi there, Kingdom Report people. Terry, it's always so great that you could be with us. Tyler Crouch, Katrina Manzone, our duo extraordinaire, our theme park analyst and travel agent, are out at Walt Disney World this week. Having a great time. You can follow them at Attract Faction and at K_Manzone. They are having a great time. You can also follow our social media at Kingdom Report Live, where you can explore everything that they are doing out at Walt Disney World, really enjoying themselves. Kimothy Hassel saying, good afternoon, Kimothy. So glad you could be a part of the broadcast. Unfortunately, Garrett Hassel is not with us today. He's out having himself a good time as well, keeping some things we'll say off the table, and then putting some things back on the table when it comes to family matters and taking care of business, and looking forward to his upcoming wedding, which is next year, but lots of planning involved with that. So the whole team's got a lot going on, and you're stuck with me today. So I apologize in advance. I'm sure we'll get by, but definitely looking forward to a great show. And next week, you can enjoy all of us back in the studio for a Kingdom Report Live return. So no longer just the audio version of what you are seeing here today with News Talk Live, where it's all about your comments, your Disney Parks opinions. But next week, you will see all of our ugly mugs back in action, talking it up and discussing all of that Disney Parks news strategy, all of the different types of stories and topics that are coming your way. We will make sure that you are well taken care of on that front with a return to the studio. Lori Jean saying, we love you, Wade. Well, thank you, Lori Jean. That means an awful lot, and I'm grateful every weekend to be with you, grateful to be here as part of the Kingdom Report. And this Disney News Talk Live, we kick things off by asking you your favorite Disneyland Resort restaurant. What is one restaurant you go out of your way for? What is one restaurant you just cannot help but consume something at? In recent weeks, we've talked about snacks, right? Snacks we would go out of our way for at Walt Disney World. And I'm a big cinnamon almond fan. They have the almonds out at Walt Disney World. They don't really sell those types of packaged nuts out at Disneyland for some reason. I think it's so bizarre to me. But they also have fewer amounts of churro stops at Disney World versus Disneyland. It's a very odd balance that they go through. Anyway, your favorite Disneyland Resort restaurant. This could be in downtown Disney, at one of the Disneyland Resort hotels, California Adventure, Disneyland. We would love to hear from you. Tell me, what is it that we are looking forward to when it comes to the Disneyland Resort restaurant lineup? Your favorite. Let me know. I would love to hear from you. I will say, at least on my end, this is all about probably, in a Disneyland resort, you got a lot of options. This is all about scenery, ambiance, and a little bit of taste to me. I am a fan of Blue Bayou, that's for sure. However, I will say, I think, and don't hurt me, but I think the Plaza Inn character breakfast, there is no better way to start a day than being on that front porch at the Plaza Inn with Minnie Mouse and friends, looking at that Sleeping Beauty castle, especially if you get there before the rest of the park opens. If you get there before the park officially rope drops, you get a pretty good chunk of time with a quiet Disneyland and all the characters surrounding you at Plaza Inn. So I think it's worthwhile value, and definitely love that buffet, that's for sure. So in terms of breakfast being my favorite type of food, I also love that as a destination. And yes, for many years, not only was I the manager of the Plaza Inn, but I was also later responsible for various entertainment elements and photography and lots of creative elements that went into the Minnie and Friends breakfast in the park. So that new opportunity that you get to meet, well, I guess it's not new anymore. It's been there for several years, but that opportunity you get to meet Minnie Mouse when you enter the Plaza Inn restaurant, and you've got that Minnie Mouse's garden backdrop, and you get to hang out with her before you even step in to pay. That was because of me. So I made sure that happened and that took place right up front, even before you were paying to get into the restaurant. You got to meet Minnie Mouse with a themed experience, because not only do you deserve it, she deserves it. That's for sure. So your favorite Disneyland Resort restaurants. What do we got here? Let's take a look. Richard saying Ralph Brennan's is worth a trip to downtown Disney by itself. Get me some beignets, Richard. I absolutely love it. One of my favorite stops, especially the express window. Big fan of that express window when I'm on the go, that's for sure. And right across the street from it, there at downtown Disney, the Cantina at Tortilla Joe's. Get me some nachos. Oh, yeah. Foodie paradise. Larry Jean saying, Blue Bayou is my favorite inside Pirates of the Caribbean. And like I was saying, it's hard to beat that, right? Definitely stands out as probably the most unique experience of dining that you could have at Disneyland. And absolutely captivating immersion when it comes to dining. I enjoy it myself. Lori Jean, thank you so much for sharing. David saying, I always have to go to Tangaroa Terrace for the Tonga toast. Never sleep on the Tonga toast, right? It is so dang good. I absolutely agree. Terry Thompson saying, Uva Bar, Downtown Disney, Plaza in Disneyland, Lamplight Lounge, California Adventure. Well, if we're going to break it down by region of the resort, that is an excellent way to do it. Sad to see that the Uva Bar is fading away. Very, very different. And Sprinkles as well. I mean, Downtown Disney in a state of flux right now, but it is definitely growing and will continue to expand with that western end of Downtown Disney redevelopment. So looking forward to seeing all of what comes in the future. They're just really slow about it. Every time I drop by, it's like they're just pushing around dirt more so than anything else. But yes, I see Terry also mentioning the late Uva Bar. Yes, the late Uva Bar. Rest in peace. But good for you, Plaza Inn at Disneyland. And then Lamplight Lounge at California Adventure. Another sleeper hit, especially if you've ever done the brunch. I don't know if you've ever done the brunch, Terry, but boy, weekend brunch at Lamplight Lounge is pretty dang good, especially right there on the water of the Paradise Lagoon, looking out at Mickey's Fun Wheel, or the Pixar Pal Around, I guess they call it now. You got Incredicoaster screaming behind you. It's a pretty awesome environment, that's for sure. Yes, the late Uva Bar. We will always remember you. Caesar saying, I like Uva Bar in downtown Disney for the drinks and people watching. Cafe Orleans for the same reason. Cafe Orleans is a really great spot to soak in the vibes. You're absolutely right. I like having a dining experience where you've got water nearby. Another reason why I like Blue Bayou, however, it's very hard to see that water because it's just so dark. You just kind of hear the splash of the boats. But huge fan of not only being able to see the river in the distance, but then hearing things like the sailing ship Columbia and the Mark Twain riverboat. Really cool effect, and it's going to be great to not only have Cafe Orleans, but also the new Tiana's Palace restaurant, Princess and the Frog themed establishment taking over the French market right next door. Going to be great. But yes, Uva Bar seems like a big hit for folks. Love that. And you let us know your favorite Disneyland Resort restaurant. If you are watching on demand after the fact, which we know so many of you end up doing, well, leave it in the comments. Let us know your favorite Disneyland Resort restaurant. We read all the comments, and we definitely try and respond to all of you. It means so much that you could be a part of the show, whether you are live or whether you are watching after the fact. It's so cool. Well, today, like I said, we are going to be talking about lots of different Disney news stories, the first of which is going to revolve around that Disneyland Fantasmic Dragon, Maleficent, or Murphy, as so many people like to call this dragon, because when it first premiered, it had every type of issue you could possibly imagine. Well, some things never change. The dragon for Fantasmic went viral this past week in a really stunning video showcasing just how horrific special effects can be when left unchecked. You take a look at some of the damage that happened here. Oh my gosh, the Fantasmic effect of the Maleficent dragon going to blow out all that fire onto the river. Very routine, very typical type of show element that goes along with Fantasmic. Mickey saying, "This is my dream," and that whole sequence, Maleficent's dragon blowing that fire out onto the water, ultimately led to what looks like almost a backdraft of fire, a pipe explosion of gas or propane, some sort of connection to this device that just went up in an inferno. And there are just a handful of folks that are on the island specifically designated to fire safety, who are firefighters, as a matter of fact. Disneyland Resort has a whole fire platoon on hand at any given time. Their fire department just behind Main Street. But on the island itself, several people who are fire safety trained, who are firefighters, standing by. But this blaze grew so big and so fast, there wasn't a whole lot that they could do. Very traumatizing to see, no doubt, especially knowing that this Fantasmic Dragon is so dang beloved in terms of size, in terms of wow factor, right? In terms of the entertainment value that it brings to Fantasmic. I mean, it's pretty epic in person. So to know that it is up in smoke, that it is gone, is really unfortunate to say the least. And, now we are going to have to suffer without it for a while. We've got all the details for you. Here's the full story. Whittier Daily News sharing with us that Disneyland has opted to extinguish signature flamethrower effects from its nighttime fireworks and water shows in the wake of the stunning technical failure that led to the Fantasmic Dragon bursting into a towering inferno. Disneyland has temporarily suspended fire effects in Wondrous Journeys and World of Color 1 out of an abundance of caution following the Fantasmic prop fire, according to Disneyland officials. Disney has temporarily suspended fire effects similar to those used at Disneyland's Fantasmic at select shows and entertainment experiences globally following the Maleficent Dragon fire on Saturday, April 22nd. Wondrous Journeys features skyward flamethrower-like effects on the Fantasyland rooftops around Sleeping Beauty Castle during the fireworks show. World of Color 1 also features similar fire effects in Paradise Bay during the water show. The Isopar cannons are capable of shooting 50-foot flames into the air during Wondrous Journeys and World of Color. The flame effects during nighttime spectaculars at Disneyland and Disney California Adventure create quickly dissipating smoke rings that have been confused for UFOs by bewildered Disneyland visitors. The Wondrous Journeys fireworks show at Disneyland and World of Color 1 water show at Disney California Adventure continue to have nightly scheduled performances. There are no Fantasmic shows scheduled at Disneyland until at least May 15th, according to the park's website. The return date for Fantasmic could change as Disneyland crews continue to assess the damage to the Dragon and the show infrastructure. Once again, big thanks to Brady McDonald of the Whittier Daily News. And from there we turn out east to My News 13 as they report that Disney World will temporarily suspend the fire effects on one of its fire-breathing dragons following the fire during the Fantasmic show at Disneyland in California on Saturday. The steampunk-inspired Maleficent Dragon float in the Festival of Fantasy Parade at Magic Kingdom won't be breathing fire for the time being. However, it will remain in the parade. The temporary suspension comes after the 45-foot-tall Maleficent prop at Disneyland went up in flames during a Saturday night performance of Fantasmic. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Quote, "We are temporarily suspending the fire effects similar to those used at Disneyland Parks Fantasmic at select shows and entertainment experiences globally out of an abundance of caution following the Fantasmic prop fire," Disneyland officials said in a statement. Disney World's version of Fantasmic at Disney's Hollywood Studios will not be impacted by the suspension, a Disney World spokesperson told Spectrum News. The show, which debuted at the Florida park in 1998, also features a fire-breathing dragon, but that prop uses a different system for the special fire effects. This is not the first time one of the dragons caught fire at a Disney theme park. In 2018, the head of the Maleficent float caught fire during Magic Kingdom's Festival of Fantasy Parade. The fire was quickly extinguished and no injuries were reported. The float was removed from the parade lineup following the incident, and several months later, a restored Maleficent returned to the parade with its fire effects intact. Big thanks to My News 13 for that story out of Walt Disney World. Pretty wild when you think about it, just how quickly something like a Fantasmic show can go awry. It is one of those like mesmerizing, incredible types of productions that Disney does where you think, man, only Disney can do this, right? Only Disney can pull off something this spectacular and over the top. And I think you kind of forget over the course of time just how easy it is for one of these effects to go haywire and to bring down the entire show, or to potentially put everybody in danger. Watching this fire erupt was something, and especially watching all of the different angles of videos caught by park goers. There was even a point where a tech was on stage with a fire retardant type of canister, attempting to put some things out when it was just a smaller scale type of fire. And as he was going about it, he realized, oh, this isn't doing much. He stepped off to the side a couple of feet, and it might be hard to tell from the angle that I saw, but it definitely looked like had he still stood where he was standing with the fire retardant when he was trying to put things out and not moved when he did, there was a direct line sort of explosion to that spot he was standing on. He would have went up in flames. So the fact that nobody was seriously injured in this inferno blaze is incredible, and I think we are all so grateful to see that Fantasmic itself still sort of remains propped up. It is still a show option in the future, as Disney is saying. They just need to get to the bottom of exactly what happened to this gigantic dragon that really ended up being a huge nuisance. Again, lovingly referred to as Murphy the Dragon outside, of the guest confines, usually within the hallways of cast members, everybody referring to it as Murphy the Dragon. So Murphy strikes again, unfortunately, and, we get that just sort of horrific imagery of the Maleficent dragon going up in smoke. And yeah, I mean, this will teach you, right? This will teach Maleficent to mess with Mickey's dream. After thousands of performances, Mickey just had it, it looks like. Flipped out and said, yeah, I think we're done here. No more charade. You're going down. Evil will fall. And that's what's happening here. So it's just incredible to watch all of this happen the way that it happened. And again, to see the video, to see how this front of everybody, and the fact that this ended up being something that evacuated the area is really terrifying too, because who knows, based on what was going on, if this had any further damage or further range, because so much was happening unexpectedly, further range to potentially hurt others, whether it be cast members, crew members, or even guests at a distance. So watching the firefighters also jump on board the flat pontoon to get on over to the island was really something. Shortly after this happened, to try and get a handle on this thing, they kind of let it burn out to a certain degree, and yeah, you get to see the video evidence of just how chaotic and crazy it really ended up being. So now I'd like to know from all of you, do you want to see a reimagined Fantasmic? Do you want to see something new? Because now they have time to go back to the drawing board. They have time to figure out, sort of what's next and what's going to happen to Fantasmic as a show, and whether or not to truly bring back the element of Murphy the Dragon. And certainly it is something cool. It is something that I think in terms of wow factor, again, blows the Fantasmic out at Walt Disney World away. That Maleficent Dragon alone is, enough for the payment of entry, if you will, when it comes to seeing that show. I'm always captivated by the size and scope of that dragon, but is it time to reimagine Fantasmic to a certain degree? Yes, they make tweaks every few years. Yes, they add new sort of enhancement technology to the lineup, but it mainly stays the same as a show. Would you like to see anything new come to Fantasmic here in the near future? Would you like to see anything change on the Fantasmic front? We would love to hear from you. Let us know either here in live chat or over on our comment section after the fact if you are watching on demand. Steve Balkenberg checking in saying, it's great to see Kingdom Report. Steve, it's always great to have you with us. Thanks for chiming in and being a part of the broadcast. Lori Jean saying at Disneyland Paris, they have a Maleficent float that breathes fire. Yeah, it sounds like everywhere. Anywhere there is a fire effect at Disney parks around the world, they are taking a pause until they can figure out what happened here specifically and that it doesn't happen again. Is that I Arrive Man? Is that is that the name I see here? I Arrive Man saying Fantasmic needs to be refreshed. Maybe so. And who knows, as we head into the summer season, a lot of attractions going offline going into summer, unfortunately. Taking a major entertainment offering like Fantasmic off the shelf. I think that's the wrong terminology, right? It would be the other way around. But taking this off the table, there we go. Different piece of furniture. That makes more sense. Taking this off the table in terms of offerings for the Disneyland resort guests, especially as we go into the summer months, makes a tremendous impact, that's for sure, in terms of guest satisfaction, as well as offerings overall. So, you take away this, you take away an opportunity for 10,000 people per show to pack in, to be wowed and impressed, and then you take off all of these other attractions alongside of it that are definitely a big draw when it comes to the Disneyland theme park itself. Going into summertime, you have a lot less to do, and you got a lot more people sort of standing around going, well, what else is there? What else are we going to do? Where else are we going to go? You kind of need these types of shows to gobble people up and to definitely draw folks in. So to refresh it now, even though they do have an opportunity here, and they can always, run it under the guise of safety because it's legitimate, right? There is a potential that they could run a refreshed show, a refreshed vacation, a refreshed sabbatical to try and figure out ways to upgrade it without maybe the same effects that led to this potentially. Very good. Javier is saying, I want to see a new reimagined Fantasmic at Disney parks, including California and Florida, except for Paris. Okay, well, we'll leave Paris off of there. Very good. Caesar's saying, I say with the new projection mapping technology, maybe use that. Doesn't happen in place of the Dragon. Yeah, and they've added some new projection mapping technology already to the show, as they have to Main Street with a lot of the fireworks projections. So there is already some mapping when it comes to lasers and lights on the Fantasmic Island. But we will see when it comes to Murphy the Dragon. Terry saying, would love to see a reimagined, refreshed version of Fantasmic just as long as they keep the show. While I love World of Color, I enjoy Fantasmic more. Terry, I agree with you. I think that the Fantasmic show itself has so much more to offer just in terms of the elements of live action versus animation, projection, and special effects. I think the combination of it all really is overwhelming in the best way, whereas World of Color is grand, it's a grand spectacle, but I always leave that going, well, it kind of feels like I'm in Vegas, and don't get me wrong, I love the music, I love the show elements that come along with it, but without the human touch and it just being a missed show with projections, there does leave a little something to be desired, doesn't there? So a reimagined, refreshed version of Fantasmic, maybe with some cooler, and I've long thought about this, especially as Disney has tested it in recent years. Imagine a Fantasmic show at Disneyland with drones, right? Imagine what it would be like with some really cool drone effects. There's a lot that could happen on that front. Richard saying, all the closures during summer, horrible timing with Fantasmic, Fantasyland, and Splash Mountain. Yeah, Richard, some Fantasyland attractions going offline. Splash Mountain, you've got Fantasmic now crippled. You're absolutely right. This isn't good timing, that's for sure. And of course, we talked about that last week, right, about Splash Mountain going offline before summer, right? As summer, sort of comes to a head here, they take Splash Mountain offline, and I know I said last week that this is one of those situations where they had so many attractions coming into the new year that were offline that they were trying to take care of and refurbish, some that needed some emergency attention, as I understand Big Thunder Mountain definitely needed some attention ASAP, and that was sort of unplanned to a certain degree. Splash Mountain going offline right before summer. Anytime you take off a water ride during the hottest time of the year, really, there was no other time we could do this. You couldn't wait until September. Come on, geez, what are you doing? So great points, Richard. Joshua saying, Chernobog animatronic would be amazing. I agree, Josh. That would be really cool. And Lori Jean saying, I love Fantasmic more than World of Color. Well, we know exactly where you stand, don't we? And IRAD Man saying, maybe that will keep the crowds down. Yeah, having all those extras offline will certainly be something people will have to weigh in terms of value, huh? Is it worth spending the money or not? So thank you so much for chiming in and sharing your thoughts. As always, you can leave those comments if you are watching on demand after the fact in our comments section. We will read them and get back to you. We always try to. Really appreciate all the participation that comes our way. All right. You've heard it. I've heard it. The Walt Disney Company has filed a lawsuit naming Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida in the suit over all of the drama when it comes to the Reedy Creek Improvement District and Disney's powers. The powers of governance that it has had for so long. A lot of folks thought, even as it was even last week, it wasn't that long ago, that Disney had sort of one-upped the state government when it came to the contract, and now the state legislator is saying that they are going to adjust law to nullify this contract, which I don't necessarily know that that's possible, based just purely on how legalities work. I'm not a lawyer, but it does seem strange that the legislator would attempt to do that, to try and align with the contract. And it's a mess. Things are pretty wild out in Florida right now, and this is a saga that is definitely going to go on and on, but now naming Governor Ron DeSantis specifically in a retaliatory fashion, saying he is retaliating against the Walt Disney Company for sticking their nose into politics here a couple of years ago when it came to the Parental Rights and Education bill. It is heating up out in Florida, and more than it usually is, right? It's getting humid out there. It's getting humid and hot. We are going to dive into the full story, all the details surrounding this lawsuit against Governor Ron DeSantis by the Walt Disney Company. What does it mean? Is it realistic? Does Governor Ron DeSantis stand a chance here? Or is Disney going to go down in a pit and look really stupid in all of this? Lots of questions. We have the details for you coming up right after this break. You stick with us. There's plenty more. Disney News Talk Live next. And the following comes to us from Deadline.com. They write that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis slammed the Walt Disney Company's lawsuit over his effort to strip the company of authority over its sprawling Walt Disney World property. DeSantis called the litigation without merit and political, while defending his moves against the Mouse House as merely putting the company on an equal playing field with other theme parks and resorts. Saying, quote, giving a company its own government, that is not what a free market is all about. In fact, they've been treated much different than Universal, SeaWorld, and all these other places. And so they're upset because they're actually having to live by the same rules as everybody else. They don't want to have to pay the same taxes as everybody else, and they want to be able to control things without proper oversight, close quote. Disney filed suit on Wednesday against the governor and his appointees to a special district board that oversees the company's Florida property. Disney claims that the governor's moves against the company were retaliation for Disney's opposition to a parental rights bill last year. As proof, Disney's lawsuit included numerous statements that the governor made after signing legislation that ended the company's control of the Reedy Creek Improvement District, 55-year-old special district that covers the property. DeSantis said, quote, I don't think the suit has merit. I think it's political. I think they filed in Tallahassee for a reason, because they are trying to generate some district court decision. But we're very confident on the law. The days of putting one company on a pedestal with no accountability are over in the state of Florida, close quote. In his remarks to reporters, DeSantis again referred to the company's opposition to the parental rights bill, saying, quote, I will say a lot of Floridians were upset, particularly parents, that they really went so headstrong into trying to get the sexualization of the curriculum into the elementary schools. We don't think that that's appropriate in Florida, and that spans everything. Parents, they want kids to be kids, and they want to focus on the basics of academics, close quote. The Florida Parental Rights and Education Act prohibits schools from having classroom instruction on gender identity or sexual orientation from K through 3. The State Board of Education recently passed a rule change that expands the prohibition to all grades, unless required by existing state standards. Civil rights groups said that the law was vague and unfairly targeted LGBTQ community. In its lawsuit, Disney said that a targeted campaign of government retaliation orchestrated at every step by Governor DeSantis as punishment for Disney's protected speech now threatens Disney's business operations, jeopardizes its economic future in the region, and violates its constitutional rights. Disney and the Reedy Creek Improvement District entered into a development agreement shortly before the state took control of the special district with the DeSantis appointees on the board. That development agreement gave the company the green light over projects on its property over the next 30 years, as well as a say in what gets built on nearby land. The state-controlled district, though, moved to void that agreement on Wednesday. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said on CNBC that, quote, this is a big employer inside Florida. I think the governor should sit down with them. I don't think building a prison next to a place where you bring families is a good idea, close quote. Last week, DeSantis floated the idea of building a prison on district property. He also said that, quote, if you are going to be an employer inside this state, you should also abide by the rules and run your business, and I don't think you should get into politics, close quote. Once again, big thanks to Deadline for that story. Feel like it never ends, this battle. It just seems to escalate and get more and more heated. We talked about last week what we thought was going to happen, obviously, before this lawsuit was filed and the entire team was here. And the discussion really surrounded whether or not Bob Iger would sit down with Governor DeSantis and talk these things out. I wish that would happen. I wish that the Disney CEO would sit down, chat with him, because I think if they got in a room together, they could probably figure things out. It's very different, when you come face to face and sit down with somebody that might be towing a bit of a line for the sake of political points, might be towing the line for the sake of supporters. I mean, it is political in every regard when it comes to this, basically the state legislator and the governor. It's very heavy-handed when it comes to what has happened to Disney and quick. So I often think, man, if you get people together to discuss things and really hash it out, I think that might make all the difference in the world. However, that does not seem to be happening here. And Bob Iger, even though he said he's open to sitting down with the governor, the governor has been basically on a world tour, as mentioned in the story. He responded, I think he was in Israel. He responded from there. Yes, it looks like he's a presidential hopeful. And I think it's important also to remember that while he's been on this world tour outside of the state of Florida, he did win in the state of Florida in this most recent election. I mean, in a landslide. I think he did the best of any potential government candidate, period, in any race anywhere, just in terms of overwhelming support. The state of Florida came out in droves for him. So he's got a ton of support, and the state of Florida seems to back him up all the way. But the name of the game here when it comes to this lawsuit is, did he retaliate? Did he sort of hasten the state legislator to revoke the permissions, the governmental powers that Disney had? And was this targeted specifically at Disney, or was this just simply a way of rolling back all of these special privileges that Disney had that, say, Universal and SeaWorld did not? As the governor likes to claim, hey, now they have to abide by the same rules as everybody else. The problem here comes with all of the language that he has used over the course of the last year, specifically when it comes to Disney and all of this, and that is all of the threats, all of the accusations, all of the heavy-handed discussion when it comes to the Walt Disney Company from his podium. And that is, we took him down. I think he said it in his memoir as well. We definitely put the woke company in check, and that doesn't happen here in Florida. We don't let companies dictate to us, those sorts of things. And so there is a lot of discussion here about whether or not he has the ability to really defend himself when it comes to, because Disney's coming at this from a First Amendment angle, right? Disney's coming at this from the angle of, you stepped on our ability to speak out against something that we didn't agree with by punishing us. Right, you came at us and used the power of the government to try and silence us into not saying anything by revoking our privileges to govern ourselves. It is a fascinating web of conflict that has been woven here, and I think that there's a lot that can definitely come from it. And certainly, if Disney is going to take that First Amendment approach, which very good angle by the lawyers to try and take that First Amendment approach. There might be, in my view, I'll just say some real opportunity here for Disney to score some points when it comes to taking the governor down a few notches, just because his rhetoric is always so large and loud and hot, right? I think that they're trying to stop him from speaking out and saying things that he would normally say when it comes to a company like Disney. I don't think that will happen, but I think Disney will definitely score points from it. So I don't think anybody will ever silence Governor DeSantis. He's very outspoken, and it's kind of his brand, right? To be aggressive, to be loud, to be sort of smash mouth and in your face, take no prisoners. That's kind of where he comes from. However, I think there's also a real opportunity here for Disney to get what they want, and to ultimately come to terms with him over a little bit more ability to govern themselves again, even if it isn't outright being in control of what was the Reedy Creek Improvement District. I see here that Richard sounded off on the matter, saying that cooler heads will eventually prevail. Both Disney and DeSantis will come to some sort of bargain where each can claim victory. Richard, absolutely. Exactly how I was feeling too. I think that there's probably going to be a moment, probably in midst of the lawsuit. I mean, we'll see. But in the midst of the lawsuit, I think things might escalate a little bit more from here. But then probably in the midst of this lawsuit, there's going to be a discussion somewhere, right? There's going to be a come to Jesus moment where everybody sort of sits down and says, hey, let's figure out a deal where everybody sort of gets what they want. But I just can't imagine that the governor is going to stop using Disney as a punching bag, because he scores some really big political points with his base on it. And it seems to be, even though it looks like the tide is turning, you hear from that in the story, Governor DeSantis now being sort of called out by Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, mentioning, hey, that's the biggest employer in your state. You know, there are other ways to go about dealing with this, sit down and talk to them. So between that, I noticed that there's quite a few senators, even some other red states that are speaking out saying, well, if you don't want Disney, tell them to come here. We'll welcome them. And then even some state representatives in Florida are now starting to change their tune just a bit, which I think is fascinating. When they were all sort of in lockstep here not too long ago and passing the legislation and amending things and moving these laws around and generating new ones and just really being all in not too long ago, there seems to be quite a bit of tune changing that we are seeing at this point. Again, not a lawyer, but just sort of my views on things. I will tell you that there are some First Amendment experts that have shared their thoughts when it comes to what is going to happen next between Disney and the governor, and exactly what sort of a case they have in terms of what Disney can do moving forward, what they might be able to get out of this, and if the governor has already stepped in it with his language. Again, I think that he's been very outspoken about all of this, and it might just come back to bite him. We've got a full analysis here for you from folks that are free speech experts and heads of free speech centers from across the country that have weighed in on this. Big thanks to Yahoo Finance for the following words. They write that now that the year-long war of words between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and the Walt Disney Company has landed in the courts, the Republican leader might find his verbal barbs directed at the entertainment giant coming back to bite him, legal experts said. Disney on Wednesday sued DeSantis to prevent the state from ending the company's virtual autonomy in Central Florida, where it has its theme parks. The suit comes a year after the company criticized a Florida law banning classroom discussion of sexuality and gender identity with younger children, prompting DeSantis to repeatedly attack woke Disney. Disney said DeSantis' actions amounted to a targeted campaign of government retaliation. The company's 73-page lawsuit is filled with blunt warnings from DeSantis' memoir, fundraising materials, interviews, and announcements that the entertainment giant had, quote, crossed a line into the realm of politics and had to be reined in. Ken Paulson, a professor at Middle Tennessee State University, said the governor may come to regret his attacks on the company, saying, quote, there's a very good chance that he's going to pay for those in a court of law, said Paulson, the director of the school's Free Speech Center. DeSantis has called Disney's lawsuit a politically motivated attack and accused the company of lacking accountability. The governor's spokesman said on Wednesday that his office was unaware of any legal right that allows a company to operate its own government or maintain special privileges, a reference to the decades-old district that is home to Disney World. Legal experts said DeSantis may have sound policy reasons to reconstitute the authority formerly known as Reedy Creek Improvement District, but if Disney can show it was done as retaliation, the company has a strong case. The fallout between Florida's biggest employer and its governor with presidential aspirations began last year. Pressured by its employees, Disney spoke out against the Parental Rights in Education Act that banned discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity for young students. DeSantis hit back, marshaling the Republican legislature to eventually seize control from the company of the special district that helped develop Disney World. Disney claimed in its lawsuit that the state adopted a, quote, targeted campaign of government retaliation orchestrated at every step by Governor DeSantis as punishment for Disney's protected speech. The U.S. Supreme Court, in a 2010 case known as Citizens United, ruled that government could not limit political speech of corporations and other entities under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. For Disney to prevail, a jury would have to find a connection between the company's comments and the changes to the development district, renamed under DeSantis' control as the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. DeSantis may argue that government has given the company special tax benefits over the years, and Florida is entitled to change that. But Leslie Kendrick, the director of the Center for the First Amendment at University of Virginia School of Law, said it will come down to the reason for the changes. Saying, quote, First Amendment law would say that is problematic if it's done because of the speaker's protected speech, Kendrick said. DeSantis' tough talk toward Disney is cited throughout the lawsuit, including 18 quotes referring to some form of woke Disney. The lawsuit cites an opinion piece DeSantis wrote for the Wall Street Journal in which he said when companies like Disney use their power to advance a woke agenda, leaders must fight back or they surrender the political battlefield to the militant left. Legal experts said examples of retaliation for political speech often involve state employees. One business example Kendrick cited involved a newspaper tax imposed on publications with a circulation of 20,000 in Louisiana in 1934, influenced by the state's powerful Senator Huey Long. The law was largely seen as punishing a student paper critical of the former governor, even though it impacted 13 publications, many of which sued. A lawsuit over the tax eventually made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which struck it down in a case known as Grosjean versus American Press. The justices said the tax was seen as a deliberate attempt to limit the spread of information, and it was suspicious the way the law was developed. Quote, history and context really matters, Kendrick said. If there is evidence that you did it for reasons that implicate the First Amendment, punish the speaker, then we have a problem, close quote. Again, huge thanks to Yahoo Finance for this story. So a lot to chew on there when it comes to the experts and sort of what they think might happen moving forward with this lawsuit against Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. Now you have a chance to sound off. What do you want to see happen when it comes to the Disney lawsuit against Governor Ron DeSantis? Do you want to see him lose horribly? Do you want to see him embarrassed? Do you want to see Disney go down in flames? Not to make reference to the dragon over at Fantasmic at Disneyland, of course, but what do you want to see happen here? Does Disney have a place to stand when it comes to sticking their nose in politics and sounding off when it comes to legislation, or should they be quiet? Does the governor have a right to say, you know what, you no longer deserve these privileges and we are going to rescind them? You let us know. You tell us how you feel when it comes to Disney's lawsuit against Governor Ron DeSantis. Again, if you're watching on demand, drop it in the comment section. If you were watching live with us, sound off. You might just appear here on the show. Lots to chew on, like I said, when it comes to all of this, and definitely a story that doesn't seem to ever stop. It just keeps getting, we'll just say progressively worse. I feel like there's no positive, no upside yet. It's like they're moving chess pieces around and keep trying to one-up one another. Eddie Rodriguez is saying, thanks for the coverage, guys. Eddie, you're absolutely welcome. I think it's important as Disney fans to understand this, to really have a grasp. There's so much discussion around it, and there's certainly a lot of chatter and rhetoric, a lot of passions, because anytime something's political, and let's admit, everything these days, unfortunately, is political. And I'm not a fan of trying to pull politics into Disney content ever, just because I know a lot of people turn to Disney as an escape. But when Disney is involved with things that are political, it's hard not to talk about it, especially when you're an outlet that covers Disney news. So it's definitely something that we try and balance, but I think it's important to understand exactly where the governor is at position-wise in all of this, and sort of what's happening in the state of Florida and what this means to the Disney company now that they feel that their First Amendment rights have been violated. It's a very interesting angle to take in all of this, and probably the best one that they could have taken, because they didn't really have a leg to stand on otherwise. But claiming that they were being retaliated against in all of this, smart by the Disney lawyers. They are not dumb. There's a whole team of people that are very well paid that were probably sitting in a room compiling all of the governor's statements from all of the different avenues, going, all right, it's just a matter of time. We're going to launch our case. Just a matter of time. We're going to go after this guy. And now they're doing it. So whether or not it will have a leg to stand on in court, we'll see. I would be surprised if this went as far up as the Supreme Court. I think it'll stop before that, just because I know that if Disney doesn't get what it wants, it's going to appeal. So I don't think it'll ever get there. I think something will happen between now and then to try and curb all of that and get things back in a good spot. But definitely a lot to understand when it comes to where Disney is trying to take all of this and exactly sort of what control and power the state of Florida has. Caesar's saying, I think this is where Citizens United ruling, the Citizens United ruling definitely makes a good case for Disney. Absolutely. And it's something that all Disney fans should, if you are rooting for Disney in this regard, all Disney fans should go take a look at. As mentioned in the story, the Citizens United ruling makes a tremendous case for Disney here. There is precedent, so we'll see what happens. They have to prove that they were specifically targeted. And as mentioned in the story, and the governor's made a lot of statements making that easier for Disney to claim. So we'll see what happens on that front. I think Caesar clearing up what he said here. I think this is where the Citizens United ruling from years ago will come into play with DeSantis versus Disney World. Absolutely, Caesar. You got that right. Very good. Well, we move now from the governor versus Disney to some really unfortunate news on the other side. While Disney is spending a small fortune with an army of lawyers to go after the state of Florida, they are laying off employees, cast members, crew members by the thousands, and this has continued through this week. There's more to come even on that front, unfortunately, as Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, announced coming into this year that the Disney workforce reduction had to be done for the sake of saving billions of dollars, trying to right the company, trying to get the company back on track. The very sad story of Disney layoffs and what it means for the company as a whole, who is getting cut and where. There's a lot to talk about. We will dive in to the Disney layoffs and what's happening across Hollywood right now when we return. Disney News Talk Live rolls on next. Don't you go anywhere. Vanity Fair writes the following, saying, "The drip, drip, drip of bad news in Hollywood turned into a flood this past week as Disney began a sweeping new wave of layoffs." By this past Thursday, 4,000 of the entertainment giant's employees found themselves on the job market, if there even is much of one right now. Between all the months of cuts and growing dread about a possible writer's strike, the mood around town right now can be summed up as "feels awful," as one source texted the writer. They go on to say layoffs have been rolling through Disney since last month and are expected to continue through spring as leaders work toward CEO Bob Iger's stated goal of reducing headcount by 7,000. Majority of workers should know their fates already, and cuts have been made within Disney's Los Angeles-based film and television divisions as well as at ABC News and ESPN. Since making his return as Disney CEO last year, Iger has been tasked with refashioning the 100-year-old entertainment brand for a future where cable television is no longer a cash cow and most audiences watch its programming over the internet. Facing pressure from investors to stanch streaming losses and mount a post-pandemic recovery, Iger said earlier this year that Disney would reorganize the company and cut $5.5 billion in costs, including laying off about 3% of its workforce. Some of the cuts have been strategic, like the elimination of Disney's approximately 50-person metaverse division. Others have appeared more opportunistic, and when the company laid off Marvel executive Isaac Perlmutter, the reclusive and famously combative billionaire who spent recent months quietly supporting his friend Nelson Peltz in his proxy fight against Disney. The cuts have been particularly anxiety-inducing for an industry worn out by a decade spent first dodging streaming disruption, then consolidation and COVID, and now a streaming correction. An executive at Warner Brothers Discovery said it best when he added to this writer last fall, saying, quote, "Everybody is totally drained and feels burned out," close quote, amid the company's own round of cuts following the merger of Discovery and Warner Media. Even Iger, then enjoying his brief retirement, or perhaps not enjoying it much in retrospect, acknowledged at the time that it was an anxious moment for Hollywood, quote, "because this is an era of great transformation, and there are still a lot of unknowns," close quote. Iger's awareness of the challenges didn't stop him from having to make his own hard decisions once he was back in the driver's seat at Disney. The entertainment blog Deadline, which has published a running list of executives' names, indicates that ABC, Freeform, 20th Television, ABC Signature, Disney Plus, and Searchlight have all lost team members, and that several top marketing executives have departed as part of the restructuring. Quote, "A lot of people are just getting rid of people they've wanted to for a long time," one insider speculates. One of the more notable losses in the latest round of layoffs is Nate Silver, the data guru and founder of ABC News' 538. Silver's expected departure was first reported by The Hollywood Reporter, though he quickly confirmed with a tweet that suggested others from the brand are losing their jobs too. Quote, "Disney layoffs have substantially impacted 538, he wrote. "I am sad and disappointed to a degree that's kind of hard to express right now. We've been at Disney for almost 10 years. My contract is up soon, and I expect that I'll be leaving at the end of it," close quote. At ESPN, 2 veteran executives were reportedly among the cuts, including ESPN Plus general manager Russell Wolf, who will depart in July after 26 years with the cable sports network. Disney has promised that the layoffs, which are not expected to affect hourly workers at its parks and resorts, will be completed by the start of summer, at which point Hollywood will be ready to take a collective breath. But with a writer's strike threatening to pummel the industry, it might be a while before the unease subsides. Again, big thanks to Vanity Fair for that story. It's really unfortunate when you think about the thousands of talented people within this company that have lost their jobs in just the last few months. and definitely one of those businesses being sort of the streaming business and D23, the streaming business that really was the only bright point here in the last 2 years in terms of success for the company, especially through the pandemic era. But then also to see that D23, the official Disney fan club, is being gutted of all of its personnel right now. And certainly last month, watching as the D23 face, as it were, Jeffrey Epstein, not that one, but the Jeffrey Epstein, who is the executive vice president of communications for the Walt Disney Company, corporate communications, and is kind of the face of all of that, did the podcast for Disney, and was very much sort of in the face of the camera all the time when it came to sort of new and exciting D23 things. They're all gone. I mean, they were just wiped off the table here not too long ago, and most recently in this wash away of personnel. It's really sad to see. David saying, when Iger says these layoffs are necessary to save money, what he means is it's necessary so shareholders don't have to shoulder the cost. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Absolutely, David. This is one of those situations where Iger was brought back in to stabilize the company that was seeing significant pitfalls when it came to revenue, and lots and lots of problems when it came to debt and issues regarding further financial projection forecasts. Oddly enough, so much of that debt had been racked up during Iger's last tenure, which nobody seems to talk about. He straddled Bob Chapek, who we all love to jump on the bandwagon of hating. He straddled Bob Chapek with a ton of debt when I should say Chapek. I should call them by last name because they're both Bobs, right? But when Chapek took over, he straddled him with a ton of debt. And so that was one very unfortunate thing that Chapek had to deal with coming in. He was straddled with all of this sort of debt landmine type situations, all of these types of situations that he had to figure out how to step around and figure out how to dig himself out from under, and no doubt started nickel and diming to try and get some revenue flowing again, which led to a huge revolt and a lot of, especially Disney Parks fans, hating Bob Chapek, because now everything was not only costing more, but it felt like value was decreasing, and so there was this big backlash. Bob Iger returns to the scene after a short period of time. Everybody celebrates him coming back through the door, calls him a hero, and now here he is saying, you know what, and we're going to lay off thousands of people because financially we need to figure out how to get ourselves back to a place that makes sense and is much more comfortable. But David, you're absolutely right. It's necessary so shareholders don't have to shoulder the cost. It also makes you wonder, David, it's like thousands of employees. How valuable does that make you feel if you are one of the thousands of employees in this company that are just being released? I mean, how valuable do you feel as a professional? How valued do you feel as a Disney talent, right, to be contributing to a company that said you are so important, we need you? Surely you were valuable at one point, but thousands of people, especially in these professional roles. I mean, these aren't frontline hourly positions where it's very easy to point to, hey, people aren't coming to these parks or revenue isn't soaring here. So it's a very easy way to say, we need to save some money. We don't need the staffing, right? So, and I know it's called unskilled labor. I hate that phrase because I think it's almost derogatory in a way, because I think customer service is definitely a skill. Especially, you got to be good at it in order to please people. But as it's defined as unskilled labor, it's so easy to, wipe thousands of those folks off sort of the board of players, if you will. But these are all very white-collar professional types of jobs. And to remove these from the mix as fast as they are and to be sort of dissolving them by the thousands, I mean, how does that make them feel? I really got to wonder. It's got to be a crushing sort of feeling. I know, having worked at the parks and definitely mentioning it in the story, that parks are not being touched in all of this, which is fascinating because, once again, parks typically when the company goes through things, they usually come to the parks and cut in certain places to try and save money, which has always bothered me because parks are almost every single time, parks are the one thing that works. The one thing that ends up being successful in all the calls and across all of the books. The parks are always the thing that saved the company in the end, but then the parks are usually the thing they go to first to cut. I've never understood that. So to know that there are not going to be workforce reductions in the parks, that is outstanding for once. They are not going there. They're going after all of the media outlets. They're going after all of the, I guess, to Disney's, sort of own acknowledgement. I mean, it sounds like they're a little bloated, right? It sounds like they have some bloated white-collar positions to get rid of. And so they're removing executives left and right and very high-paying positions and consolidating divisions and roles and responsibilities. But I know from my time at the parks, it was always very disappointing to hear that they were coming in as a corporate entity after calling us family, after telling us how special and important we were, after saying we can't do this without you, and then coming in and totally removing us, eliminating us from existence and saying, you understand, it's business. It taught me a lot through my time at Disney to never, and it helped me mature to a certain degree. It helped me realize that as touchy-feely, comfortable, loving as this company feels, right, as wonderful as we all look at Disney as being, as sort of this crown jewel of, they get you in the feels all the time, they make you feel good, they know how to amp you up. It taught me early on that business is business, and not to be cold-hearted or anything like that. Certainly will always have a warm heart and a belief that people are good. But when it comes to corporations and businesses, do not put all your loyalty in one basket, and do not convince yourself that there's only this way, there's only this company, there's only this loyalty here, because they're going to disappoint you. They're going to hurt you in the process. And I saw that a lot. I saw a lot of diehards that said, I'm a lifer. I'm never leaving this company. I'm never going anywhere else when it comes to Disney. I saw lifers walk away. I know because I'm one of them. I was a Walt Disney Legacy Award winner. I went through the leadership ranks, senior management. I mean, I was a part of creating things and, putting things into place that millions of people experience now. Millions of people end up enjoying. And that honor is something that I will never shake. It's such an honor knowing that I was a part of the Disney story for however long I was. But I too walked away at one point because I saw certain things that were happening and certain ways in which people were being treated. And, it was during the 20th Century Fox acquisition where they promised they were not going to promote or develop or grow people from within anymore. And it could take up to a year in which to start again because they needed to figure out what to do with the tens of thousands of people coming from Fox. And at that point, they were not going to allow anybody to basically progress that was already there. And they said up to a year. And I thought, I am not going to waste a year of my life after I've already been here, more than a decade, giving my blood, sweat, and tears to a company that I believe in so much. And I was just on the line for a position, just on the line for a new promotion even. There was an opportunity for me to move ahead right at that moment, as a matter of fact. And I got told, yeah, well, that's probably not going to happen. It could be up to a year. And I thought, this is this is not right. This is not cool. And it gave me an opportunity to go and spread my wings and do other things, and certainly find a lot more success elsewhere. Still love the company, still very much a fan of what the company does and what it stands for, from a storytelling and from I think a universal truth standpoint. The company's always been an organization that, even going back to Walt, he knew that things like dreams and magic and wishes were timeless. He knew that. And so to have a company based around that, it's very easy to buy into it. It's very easy to believe in it. And I do still, to a certain degree. I'm not bitter by any regards. I'm not hateful or spiteful or anything like that. But I recognized in those moments where things were happening so quick and changing so fast, I recognized there that this is a corporation. This is a business, and they're going to do what they need to do to remain profitable. And I always understood that. I wasn't naive. But until it directly affects you, it's easy to not see those things as vividly and have the rose-colored glasses and the blinders on. And it's very easy to let those things go by the wayside over the years. Watch as other people are affected, watch as other people are laid off, watch as other people are impacted by reductions and cuts and losing hours and those sorts of things. And not necessarily believe that it's really ever going to happen to you because you're a lifer. Whatever comes, you're in it for the long haul. You're going to do it. You're going to make sure it's all magical and perfect, and you're going to represent this company the best way you can. But then when it all comes tumbling down on your lap, that is when you have to make a decision. Does this company determine my value, or do I determine my value? Am I valuable otherwise? Of course I am. And that led to a departure. So never say never. I mean, it's a large company that continues to grow, and I've never said, oh, I'm not going back, or never again, or that's not a company I could ever work for, or blah, 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 blah. But it certainly was an organization that I learned that you cannot put all your eggs in one basket, and you have to determine your own future for yourself. Your value means a lot. So speak your truth in your value and believe in yourself. Step away if you need to, and move on to other things that are bigger, brighter, and far better for you. That's right. Well, I appreciate you letting me have story time with you here. Certainly was not the original idea as to what I wanted to do, but David, you got me going. See what happens? You got me going on a tangent, and that's what occurs. My friends, it has been a real pleasure being a part of your weekend once again. As always, a reminder, we are going to be back with you next Saturday for Kingdom Report Live, back in the studio once again, the whole team together, talking about the latest Disney parks news and discussion. If you have not done so already, head on over to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, also TikTok. Head on over to all of them at Kingdom Report Live and join up with us. We would love to make your acquaintance. Never miss an update coming our direction to you, coming from our direction to you, that is. Kingdom Report Live on social media. And for all of us at the Kingdom Report, thank you for allowing us to be a part of your weekend. We'll see you next Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, for a Kingdom Report Live return.